am so pleased to introduce world-renowned musical artist Aretha Franklin to sing My Country, 'Tis of Thee.
From WBRN Radio, traveling on the Boston Red Network. This is special programming Kwanzaa 2019, a day founded in 1966 by Dr. Maulana Karenga. We at WBRN Radio do an annual Kwanzaa program, usually a number of them during the season of Kwanzaa from the 26th to today, which is the 1st of January 2020. Let me get my glasses on here and we'll just go over some of the days of Kwanzaa. Umoja, unity. Wachikaluka, self-determination. Ujima, collective work and responsibility. Ujama, cooperative economics. You can kind of understand what this day is all about. Kuumba, creativity. Imani, which would be today faith. To believe with all of our hearts in our people, our parents, our teachers, our leaders, the righteousness and victory of our struggle. Now on Kuumba, this creativity to do always as much as we can, in a way we can, in order to leave our community more beautiful and beneficial than we inherited it. Is part of it. This is a holiday that's not a religious holiday, but a holiday of reflection, Ujuma, unity, to strive for, to maintain unity in the family, the community, the nation, and the race. Kukaluma, self-determination to define and name ourselves, as well as to create and speak for ourselves. Ujama, collective work and responsibility to build and maintain our community together, make our brothers and sisters' problems our problems, and to solve them together. Cooperative economics, to build and maintain our own stores, shops, and our businesses, to profit from them together. Purpose, to make our collective vocations in the building and development of our community in order to restore our people to their traditional greatness. Now, this is very interesting, the evolution of Kwanzaa since 1966 to 2019. Those principles are still there. Those principles not only apply to the African American community or the African community in America and the diaspora all over the world, but to the humanity. When we talk about Ubuntu, basically we're talking about the same thing. On our open source report part of WBRN Radio, we spotlight open source or open source software development, which can be used by humanity, in other words, anyone in the world, and liberate free software. All of this goes with the idea that Dr. Karenga espoused. So it is evolutionary as to where we'll get today. He has an annual message which we'll read in a part. Let me get to it. This was published in the Los Angeles Sentinel, Living Kwanzaa and the Seven Principles, All Season Celebrations, and the Practice of the Good. Now, this was published on the 19th of December, 2019. Every year, Kwanzaa provides us, Dr. Malana Karenga, with a special and unique time to see and celebrate ourselves as African people in beautiful, uplifting, and liberating ways. But it also offers us a set of principles which, if practiced throughout the year, ensures that Kwanzaa, Nguzo Saba, the seven principles, are not only subjects and references for a season, but also a lived and living tradition, which indeed making a Kwanzaa and Seba what Seba Mal-colm called a living reality, is made more compelling by the origins in history, culture, and righteousness, and relentless struggle by our people to bring and sustain good in the world. Kwanzaa's origins are both ancient and modern, both sourced to serve, to urge us to constantly strive and struggle to be ourselves and free ourselves, to live good lives, to bring forth the best of what's meant to be African and human. As both a personal and social practice, Kwanzaa's rootedness in ancient African first fruit or first harvest celebration offers a framework of activities that are not simply seasonal but are all seasonal practices of building family, community, and preserving and expanding a culture and doing good in and for the world. It is for people, for its people-focused, environmentally caring, morally concerned holiday dedicated to cultivating, harvesting, and sharing good in the world. Also, Kwanzaa was conceived and developed in the Black Freedom Movement and was understood as part and parcel of a twofold struggle to be ourselves and free ourselves. It was a struggle to be black, to be African, to be free from domination, deprivation, degeneration, and to be free to live good, meaningful lives, bringing good in the world and coming in fulfillment of ourselves. Kwanzaa then is a time of seriousness and sustained remembrance, reflection, and recommitment. And thus it calls for us to set down. Just a second here. And to meditate deeply on the awareness and meaning and responsibility of being African in our community, society, and the world. And it requires us to remember, as Mary McLeod Bethune taught us, that we are inherents and custodians of great legacy. We must bear the glory, beauty, and burden, but legacy with strength, dignity, and determination. This year's Kwanzaa theme is Living Kwanzaa and the Seven Principles, and all season celebration and practice of the good. Implies its nature is a question of how we make Kwanzaa more of an annual celebration, a season, an epic engagement with our culture, the beautiful, the uplifting, and liberating sense of ourselves it gives us. But embedded in the theme is the answer by holding fast to the spirit and principles of Kwanzaa, in which we live our lives, do our work, wage our struggles to bring forth the best of ourselves and to bring and sustain good in the world. This requires embracing the principles of Kwanzaa as a continuous and daily process to use and embrace them as moral imperatives, obligations born of our history, our struggles on active concerns about current conditions of our lives, and forging a new and expansive future of the maximum of human freedoms and flourishing. As we embrace and practice these principles, we not only transform the conditions of our lives as a people in liberating the way, we also transform ourselves and expanding the human sense and moral substance of ourselves through dedication, discipline, sacrifice, and achievement of the good. The principle of Umoma, unity, asks and urges us to think rationally and act according, to strive for and maintain unity in the family, the community, the nation, and the race. For it teaches a deep sense of relatedness, togetherness, oneness in the world, and a constant concern and working and struggle for the good and the well-being of the world in all of it. The principle of Kumachakala, self-determination, asks and urges us to define ourselves, name ourselves, create ourselves, speak for ourselves, to respect the right of other people to do the same. It is a claim, it is a commitment to freedom in its fullness and various forms, and dignity affirming, life enhancing, and world preserving ways. It's about appreciating and speaking our special cultural truth to the world and bring forth our unique contribution to initiating a new history of humankind. Frantz Fanon challenged us. Ujoma, collective work and responsibility, calls upon us to build and maintain our communities together and to make our brothers and sisters problems our problems, and calls upon the cooperative creation of the good community, society, and world we want and must work to do. Ujoma, cooperative economics asks and urges us to build and maintain our shops and businesses, to profit them together, to put forth the foundation principles and processes of a shared work and shared wealth in the world. Unites your purpose. Ask and urge us to make our collective vocations the building and development of our community in order to restore our people to their traditional greatness. Knowledge and resources. I won't go over all of this Kulumba creativity. I hope I'm butchering these. My Swahili 40 years ago doesn't serve me as well as it should. Calls upon us to do always as much as we can in the way we can in order to leave our communities more beautiful and beneficial than we inherited. Indeed, our ancestors called us in Swahili not only Watu, human beings, but also world human beings. Walalima Wigu. Wigu? Yeah. And they taught us that Mentinian ethic imperative of Serundi Ta, constantly repair, renew, and remake the world in making it more beautiful and beneficial than we inherited it. And finally, faith, Imani, reminds us of the indispensable foundation of confidence, righteousness, and rewarding belief. Calls upon us to believe with all our hearts in our people, our parents, our leaders, our teachers, rightfulness, and the victory of our struggle. Indeed, there is no real, relevant, or righteous moving forward without faith in the people. For parents, leaders, teachers, and all of us who are beautiful, good, essential to our lives, are composite parts and representatives of our people. It is faith in our people and service to them that grounds our lives and gives meaning to our work and victorious movement to our struggle. We must believe in the righteousness and victory of our people, regardless of delays, disappointments, setbacks, desertions, defections, for reasons and excuses of endless kinds. There is no substitute for freedom, no alternative to justice, no possibility for a good life and future without forged in righteousness, a relentless and victorious struggle. Ways Kwanzaa, happy Kwanzaa to you. And that is Dr. KARENGAACH. Alright, let's get this up and we'll go to a few stories to Los Angeles. We'll start out with rents. This is from the LA Times. LA rents rose 65% over the past decade of 10 years, a study shows. And this has created problems for African people and other people living in Los Angeles. The average flat or apartment in Los Angeles costs $2,500 a month, which is 65% higher price than a decade ago. This is from Rent Cafe. On Wednesday, a sweeping rent control bill will take effect. That is today, capping yearly rent increase at 5% plus inflation and requiring a just cause for eviction. But after the last decade, LA renters' new protection appeared akin to putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. That's according to a study from the listing service Rent Cafe. The report, which synthesized data from Popular Strength, Yardi Matrix, and the U.S. Census Bureau, found the average rent in the city of Los Angeles, $2,527. That's a 65% increase since 2010. That's significantly higher than the national average rent increase of 36%. In Westwood, the average rent is double that. Westwood neighborhood, that's where UCLA is. Rents for $4,000, almost $5,000 a month. Family incomes have been unable to keep up. Same thing Jerry Pippin talked about. Incidentally, we did the New Year's Eve show, and we encourage you to listen to it. Parts of it has been updated by us, and parts were a program that the late great Jerry Pippin presented. That was one of his duties in 2013. For 2000 was New Year's Eve 2013. The finding of rise of rents continued to rise in popularity, with increased numbers of people renting by choice rather than by necessity. LA's median income grew 36% to $64,000. That's slightly more than a national increase of $27,000, but shy of the 61% jump saw in San Francisco as family incomes. In 2010, saw the number of U.S. renters surpass 100 million for the first time, growing from 99.4 in 2010 to 108.5 million in 2018. That means renters make up 34% of the U.S. population, up a full percentage point from a decade ago. The numbers nearly double in L.A., and that not only areas of L.A., but in Watts and various other entities like that where African Americans are. Of course, Watts is now a Latino neighborhood, but the home ownership has went down, where renters make up 60% of the population. That ranks 19th highest amongst the nation's 260 largest cities. Glendale boasts the city's highest concentration of renters at 67%. Of course, over the decade, 2.4 million apartment units were built in the U.S. to meet the rising demand. The study found roughly 98,000 of those were constructed in Los Angeles. Good for the fifth most in the country. A flurry of notable developments moved forward this year, including a controversial project that added 725 units across a 7-story building in a Chinatown that's close to Skid Row. Other developers are taking advantage of a city program that allows for larger than usual projects. This is happening all over the nation. Density, they call it, near transit. For developers, they have Venice Boulevard. One such bill is erecting an 8-story building. Buildings are not as tall there as it in the East Coast that we see in the East, New England, New York, that area. Land is at premium. However, apartments are becoming smaller. In 2020, new apartments cover an average of 990 square feet. They now average 933 square feet, according to the report. That's a drop of 57 square feet. Yeah, you had a tiny apartment. The national decrease is 6%, but in Anaheim, new apartments shrunk 12%. New rent control law comes on in 2020. It is today. Looked to help roughly 9.5 million renters in California who spend more than 30% of their income on rent. Considering more frequent rent increases, while others started handing out no-fault eviction notices to those who were paying a lower rent because the law forbids it next year. Now, this is another scam here. As a result, the LA City Council was forced to approve an emergency moratorium in October outlawing no-fault evictions. The ban requires that just cause to remove tenants, such as not paying rent or a destruction of property. Well, that's another problem. They destroy the property or renovate it, etc. And let's go to homelessness in Watts. This is another of the Band-Aid situations here involving the African American community. Now, this is in Watts. Only 100 homeless people there to a lunching at a new homeless shelter in Watts. It's a $5.4 million facility, bringing the number of shelter beds available under the Bridge Home program to more than 500. That's ridiculous. Just 17 months to open. That was a year after outreach by residents of Barkscanano's office. This is Joe Boscanino. Anyway, we had 150 community meetings. Not too worried about what that was. It opened in 100 beds there. Nearly all the residents in New Shelter are African Americans, a testament to both the overrepresentation of African Americans in Los Angeles County. Homeless population in Watts is now, of course, 70% Latino. African Americans are 9% of the population in Los Angeles. About 40% of its homeless population results of systematic discrimination in housing and employment. That's from the LA Homeless Service. Unlike other shelters in South Los Angeles, the new shelter is open around the clock. Residents are guaranteed beds and pets are allowed. It's operated by the Salvation Army. That's unfortunate. The city of Los Angeles should be operating that center. 9 shelters are open with a total of 500 beds. 14 of the 15 council members have committed to having at least one shelter in their district. In Watts on Monday, many of the residents who were at lunch were older veterans of the 1965 Watts Rebellion. And one fellow here, Samuel Harris, a former security guard and carnival worker, interesting, he missed the day of the rebellion by participating in post-civil rights work. He had an apartment in a building for seniors for a while, but became homeless, he said, after 2 separate landlords tried to cheat him out of his rent money. Oh, boy. After sleeping in tents in hotels in San Bernardino to Echo Park, this is some woman that's 25 years old now, stays in shelter in Watts with her boyfriend. She said she's seen things she wished she'd never seen, amongst them rats bigger than the opossum. I doubt that at all. So this is it. This Vasqueros was elected president of the National League of Cities last month. Well, that didn't tell us much. What's needed in L.A. is 50,000 new beds or units there because of the homeless population. 500 just doesn't do it. What's happening here is that cities are building projects that they would have built in the 70s when there were far less homeless people. There were a few places like the Salvation Army and missions, etc., where transit type slept. And of course, there were cheap hotels where people could also sleep. So that, in other words, that was a different situation than what we have today. There's no doubt about that. Let me see if I can find another article here that we would be interested in by going to, I believe we're going to the New York Times here, perhaps? Maybe. Now we'll do this one. This is a little bit different here on a Kwanzaa program, but a prime anchor in Amazon warehouse. Town dreams of a better life. This could be happening in any neighborhood, anywhere, but this is in the state of Kentucky. Campbell Bell's Kentucky. Anyway, in the 90s, the town of Campbellville's in central Kentucky suffered a powerful jolt when its Fruit of the Loom textile plant closed. Thousands of jobs making underwear went to Central America, taking the community's pride with it. The unemployment hit 28%. And Amazon leased a Fruit of the Loom's white warehouse about a mile from a factory and converted into a fulfillment center. The speed package deliveries to places like Indianapolis, Nashville, and Columbus. Its workers, many of them are Fruit of the Loom veterans, earned less than what the textile worker paid. But digital excitement was overwhelming. This is Bales, who owns the Washington Post. In Seattle, Amazon built a $4 billion urban campus, redefining or swap the city. Now, this is displacement that people happens to people. The outcome has been difficult for Campbellsville. The only sizable community is in Taylor County. The population has stalled at 25,000, and the income has barely kept pace. 1 in 5 people live in poverty. This is basically the same thing. Period. Divergent faiths offer a window into what the town can give to the tech behemoth over the decade. What exactly they get in return. And the Campbellsville warehouse was the first of what we are now an estimated 477 Amazon fulfillment service centers, delivery centers, and other outposts around the country. Campbellsville has 11,000 inhabitants, and the mayor there, Brenda Allen. Amazon has been a real good business for 20 years. They haven't been disappointed at all. We're glad they're here. Well, they have something in the town there. In central Kentucky, Amazon reached the benefits, including a type of tax break by critics paying taxes to the boss. In arrangement, 5% of Amazon workers' paychecks, which would ordinarily be destined for the county and the state, go to Amazon itself. Oh boy. While the tax break has run out, Campbellsville itself still gets no tax money from Amazon. The warehouse is just outside the limits of the city. No one wants Amazon to leave. It's the largest private employer there. We are a company town with Fruit of the Loom. We were, and we become a company town now. Jay Goran, a local historian. Amazon has said it was not responsible for Campbellsville's virtuality. It is the biggest employer. Amazon is not the barometer. The company said it spends $53 million remodeling the warehouse to benefit the workers. The facility includes classroom training, workshops, etc. Some cities and towns are now weighing the costs of these ventures, and they decided they don't want it. The company, over 20 years, nationwide, total of all state and local subsidies, the company is at $2.8 billion. Activists, this is around the area that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in New York, they said no, so they moved on, but they did open an office in Manhattan to serve the middle class. The needle has not moved in the last 2 decades on the quality of life in Kentucky, especially in places like Campbellsville. What does that tell you? That is from the Kentucky Center for Economic Policy, Jason Bailey. He called the state's fiscal mess because of tax giveaways to Amazon and other countries, companies. Kentucky has 20 rounds of budget cuts since 2008. Old man McConnell represents him in the Senate. In 1948, a Kentucky underwear company set up an outpost in the basement of Campbellsville Armory with 45 workers. This eventually became the largest male underwear plant in the world. It had 4,200, producing 3.6 million garments a week. The money was good, especially for women and African Americans who had fewer opportunities. This is where it comes in. The Fruit, as it was eventually called, built the first public tennis courts, paid the city $250,000. That was in 1965. That was a lot of money. That was several million today. And expanded the wastewater disposal plant. And the executives created a country club and public swimming pool. But the easy times ended with NAFTA. That was in 1994. Amazon arrived 5 years later with a second chance. Campbellsville was more than 40 miles from the nearest interstate there. To Amazon, the local fiscal count passed the payroll tax measure. Amazon-like workers would pay 1% payroll tax and 4% income tax. Now, this is a lady here. Enthusiasm of yesterday's workers embraced today's economy was a big story there. Somebody named Arlene Dishman began working in 1970. She said she earned as much as $15 an hour, the equivalent of about $100,000 now, sewing necklines on V-neck t-shirts. She used to buy those. And she started Amazon making only $7.50 an hour. But she's happy to be there. She became a trainer, working with Mr. Bales himself when he came to town, and was promoted to management. So Ms. Dishman fell in the right place. I worked on the 3rd floor. No air conditioning. I would have people on the line pass out constantly. Oh boy. As a manager, she said she too understood why, which was her undoing. I worked with people there for so many years at Fruit. When a situation came up that management was not liking, I had a tendency to take the workers' side. Somebody by the name of Joe Perkins, who worked there for 24 years at Fruit and then for Amazon, and he took pride in being an e-commerce startup. We treat it like our company said. I personally worked with Bales. I actually liked the guy. So my manager called me into what he did not like was Amazon managers called me in the office one day and said, "Dave, your performance is not what it needs to be." And I said, "How can I prove it?" He said, you don't fire enough people." Oh, I see. Perkins was let go with a little exclamation. Perkins 64, Ms. Dixon 71. Have prime accounts. Dixon's daughter works for Amazon as a data analyst. Ms. Dixon, even though about returning to the warehouse during last holiday, a little thought about it. Excuse me. She didn't follow through though. She didn't want to be back there anymore. So everyone in Campbellsville remains faithful to Amazon for coming and grateful. Excuse me. I guess they're faithful too. When Amazon arrived, it said it would employ 1,000 people full time within 2 years. That's still the official total from the Kentucky Cabinet of Economic Development. Jeremy Johnson and Goran published their situation there. Amazon has a total now of 655 full-time workers. That's probably more than most. We have a balanced capacity around the network. This Cheeseman, I don't know who she is. Oh, she speaks. In November, Amazon said full-time workers had risen to 700. And what else have they done here? Amazon paid to the school district about $350,000 this year. They paid the county an estimated $410,000. In the 70s and 80s, life revolved around Fruit. When Fruit shut down for 2 weeks in July every year, the town was so dead that other industrials scheduled their vacations also. Amazon is everywhere and nowhere, as Goran said. This town runs on Amazon, but the workers are not in a position of political power, no doubt about that. Amazon is linked into the community in other ways that offers end up benefiting Amazon. They donated 25 Kindle tablets to a kindergarten and first grade class. Also donated 2,500 content. The schools are increasingly buying supplies from Amazon, about 50,000 a year, so it's benefiting them. The county has 2,800 students. The Taylor Regional Hospital bought the naming rights to a healthcare service room. A university there did the same for an education center. Amazon is not a corporate sponsor. Last spring, a local library recipient of a $10,000 gift, Amazon, for science and technology education, plans to supply every library wanted by ordering the material through its own site. Oh boy. The town librarian is named Tammy Snyder. The library, like other public institutions in Kentucky, He's dealing with the state's largely unfunded pension system. Proposed changes that involve the library paying significant more would bankrupt us. And Justin Harding has no illusions about Amazon. He and his wife opened the Harding Coffee, a popular meeting place on Main Street. I'm 100% supportive of Amazon. I have 5 kids, no doubt about that. A pile of rubble on the south side marks the ruin of the fruit plant. The property is owned by the Powells, the commercial contractors who ran excavation in nearby Columbus. Let's see who else. Kroger, the country's largest supermarket chain, would close its 2 Campbell stores. It would become a marketplace anchor tenant there. Work was supposed to start within weeks, and then let me make sure I'm not missing something here. They bought the textile plant and other investments a decade ago with the goal of building a retail complex called the Campbellsville Marketplace. Well, the marketplace anchor tenant there. The work was supposed to start in 2017, buying an upscale grocery chain, Whole Foods. Indeed, Campbellsville was put on hold, then abandoned. Oh well. We used to talk about the Walmart effect. Yeah, when you saw vacant storefronts in small towns. Powell Excavation, is a good Amazon customer. The company needs a muffler recently for a truck hoe. It would cost $1,200 from a dealer, and on Amazon half of that. Well, there's eBay and everybody else out there. Also, they would like a Whole Foods there, but know the town is too small to support one. And now on Amazon Go, why don't you just get a 7-Eleven? Anyway, that was from the New York Times. That what that illustrates is, and you can see that in the writing of Dr. Karenga, moving from a nationalistic type position to an international position. And this brings home what to do about the Amazons of the world. It has to be approached now in a global sense, including the rights of workers and unionization of workers, period, and the consumers. So this is a situation. It has to be looked at from both the worker standpoint, the consumer standpoint. People are now understanding, due to climate change, that when you are ordering from various people, it could be eBay, whomever, Amazon, AliExpress, that you order in such a way as that 50 packages do not come to your residence, that you try to group things together. So that's less wear and tear. Of course, a lot of Amazon packages are now fulfilled through the U.S. Postal Service, not necessarily UPS and those people anymore. But nonetheless, this is Kwanzaa 2019. Hopefully we have been able to weave some things together by looking at real-life situation out in Los Angeles, where the Sentinel newspaper is, and the plight of African Americans, and of course the plight of African Americans in Collinsville, Kentucky, and those that used to work at the fruit plant and now they work at the Amazon fulfillment center there, and they are making obviously less than they used to make. Speed ups galore, but yet they struggle, and that's the whole idea behind Kwanzaa, the struggle of the people, but the people in a collective sense. And one thing needs to be said about Dr. Karenga and a Kwanzaa is the idea of collective work. What will kill any community, it doesn't matter who they are, it could be even the working class, when you get into individuality, a ragged American individualism, that destroys the body fabric. And you see much of that. It was utilized, of course, in the 2016 campaign by alerting people, quote-unquote, at self-interest. That was even people in the working class that were unionized that if they only voted for a certain set of principles, a tribe, or whatever they wanted to vote for there, they would be okay. But the unions have been decimated. You look to Michigan, proud states trying to come back now, home of the UAW, and a right-to-work state. How did that happen? That happened because of significant influence of the militias in Michigan, which were based upon hate and conspiracy theories. They had those conspiracy theories about President Obama's birth certificate, and then they carried it to the other extent to cover the African American community. Well, President Obama didn't do enough for us. We don't have to worry about that on the DJ Trump. Of course, DJ Trump has brought African American unemployment rates down, but people are working 2 or 3 of these Trump jobs. So in other words, there is that situation. Now, there are some people out there lucky enough in the 2019 to have so-called good jobs. Now, and some of those jobs are even union jobs that make as much as $30 an hour. That's basically the top pay in the automobile industry nowadays. But that will not last forever. It is a transitional situation. As we see in the economy that we now have, that is transitioning, where we'll have more and more robotics, more and more algorithms that cut in. In fact, at Amazon, you work with the robots, but they still need humans there to do some of the things. But the human, this is such as at the market, you have the self-checkout stands, kiosks, or whatever you want to call them, are getting more and more, from buying groceries to getting your airline tickets or whatever, or having Amazon Prime delivered to your doorstep. But as Jerry Pippin has said, and we invite you to listen to what Jerry had to say in 2013 about the plight of working people, income inequality, and you see more and more of that. Particularly, we were looking at Los Angeles, where rents had increased there 67%, and the housing is not affordable. Around UCLA, where students live, $4,500 a month. That's in Los Angeles. Or roughly $25,000 a month, $2,500, a month for a flat there. And at the same time, many of the old apartments and spaces where they were down around Skid Row, those years of Los Angeles, have been destroyed, and new buildings have arrived. Some for living, many for retail, etc. So in other words, the landscape has changed from Los Angeles to Nashville, to Boise, Idaho, to Seattle, down to Albuquerque, over to Oklahoma City, to Yonkers, New York, Dorchester, Boston, and in between. You're seeing more and more cities go to density, they call it, so they can get the property tax. Well, it's good if you can get the property tax, but the problem is, as the number of people working in your city, whether it's density or not, you'll have less people that can pay the tax. And even in places like San Francisco, where they have the tech economy, or Seattle, where the tech economy is booming now, things change. Even Amazon, in an economic downturn, which you will have, depending on the severity of the downturn, people will be using Prime less. Thus, Amazon will, as they say, tighten their belt. And right now, it's sort of like what's happened in the media with journalists, etc. 8,000 made redundant or unemployed last year alone. It's a lot of people. The local newspaper used to be a place where it was viable employment. Newspaper editors, reporters, like Amy Klobuchar's father. He retired a journalist, a member of the newspaper guild. And I think after he left that newspaper was sold to a venture capitalist somewhere along there, and many people left that particular newspaper, as happened with the Sun-Times, the Tribune in Chicago, the Los Angeles Times. But some newspapers stabilized. The New York Times, they went into a digital format with the Wall Street Journal, etc. And Bales has actually built up the Washington Post. They've actually hired journalists. But again, acting more as a national newspaper, and their sports situation has changed. And we heard that some of the media companies, ESPN, etc., that have these freelance types in the so-called gig economy in California, they have eliminated those positions. So you have all kinds of machinations going on out there. Happy New Year, happy Kwanzaa, everyone. This is Boston Red in the Jerry Pippin Memorial Broadcast booth. Good day.